We are going to be spending time over the next several days working on our personal narrative writing assessment. Before we begin working on this project, we would like you to spend some time remembering all of the great lessons your teachers have taught you about how to write a strong personal narrative. The first thing we need to be thinking about is that we're not writing stories that are the whole watermelon. Remember we said that writing about the whole watermelon is writing about events that are too big and too broad, not your entire trip to Disneyland, not even your entire trip anywhere. No getting up in the morning to going to bed stories, not your entire day somewhere. Right? Not, I got up in the morning, I brushed my teeth, I washed my face, I ate my breakfast, I put on my clothes. Oh my goodness, that would be the most boring story ever. When you try to write about a topic that's too big and takes time and happens over too big a time, you end up having to include a lot of lists of things that happened, and that becomes boring for your reader. So we want to narrow down what we're talking about. We want our story to be a smaller moment. We have to be careful, though, that when we narrow it down, we don't narrow it down just a little bit. We don't even want a slice of watermelon. So if the whole watermelon was Grandma's whole week-long visit to our house, the slice of watermelon might be when we made dinner together. That's still kind of a big time frame. That might have taken a couple of hours to make, and I bet there was a moment during that making dinner that could be that really special moment that you could be writing about. That's why we want our writing topic to be the seed that we're writing about. Not Grandma's whole visit, not the 2 hours that we made dinner, but that moment, that one moment when your dog stole the meat off the counter, that's the moment that's exciting and interesting to hear about. Not the whole story of having a dog for your whole life. Way too big of a topic. That's a watermelon topic. I've always had a dog for the last 5 years of my life, right? Way too big. Not even, I like to play with my dog and trying to tell me all the ways that you play with your dog. That's too big also. But maybe that moment that you first met your dog and you felt his cold nose and you rubbed his soft fur, that would be a great small moment. All right, so let's do a quick check. If I'm picking my small moment, should I write about my whole spring break?
No, Miss Krebs.
Yeah, you're right. That's too big. What if I just do my whole kayaking trip that I did during spring break? Does the whole kayaking trip work?
No, Miss Krebs.
Okay, well, on my kayaking trip, I tipped over and fell in the water. Does the moment that I fell in the water work?
Yes, Miss Krebs.
Oh, good. All right. So once you have your small moment, you need to think of some other components of personal narrative. Remember that your story needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning of your story, you're going to be introducing your reader to what's happening. Introduce your reader to your characters, your setting, and the situation. What's happening in this story? Not all the main events, but let your reader understand the situation that's going on before you jump into your middle. In the middle, if your story has a problem, this would be the place where you might explain the problem. But you definitely are going to be explaining most of the events in your story in the middle of your writing, giving lots of details and helping your reader picture in their head all of the things that happened to you during this small moment. Finally, the end of your story should have the solution. If there was a problem, I hope you tell us how you fixed it. It's also the place to wrap things up and to have a really strong ending, an ending that makes your reader feel like this is done and I'm really excited that I read this story. Another thing to remember when writing your personal narrative is that you need to be describing people, places, and things. You should be thinking about your 5 senses, how things look, smell, feel, sound, or taste. Be thinking about what kind of describing words you can use as you're doing your writing. We'll be asking you to plan some of those describing words even before you begin doing your writing piece. Another component that Ms. Krebs' class has talked about this year is adding fries to our story. Even if you're not in Ms. Krebs' class, you could be thinking about how to add fries to your story. Adding fries means adding facts, reasons, interesting words, examples, and statistics. When I say statistics, I mean math things like how many cookies did you eat when you ate the most cookies you've ever eaten in your whole life? Use numbers to help us understand some of the things that are happening in your story. So here's what I always here's what I always tell my students. I always tell my students, I want fries with my stories. I want facts, reasons, interesting words, examples, and statistics. So as you're writing, think about how you can use those and your describing words to paint a picture with your words so that your teacher can picture what happens in her head when she's reading your story. Another thing to include in your story is an explanation of how the events in the story made you feel. Were you happy, sad, angry, excited, or did you feel some other emotions while these events were happening to you? How about your reader? What emotions would you like your reader to feel? Are you using words that will help your reader feel that way? Finally, we encourage you to use some dialogue in your story. Dialogue means people talking. Now, a good personal narrative is not all dialogue, but some words here or there where somebody is saying something can add some spice to your story and make your story more interesting. Please do not write a story where it's only people talking. We need lots of other descriptions in the story besides people talking. Okay. So now you've remembered the steps of a personal narrative and all the parts that we want you to have in it. Let's talk about the assignment we're about to give you. Step 1 is we would like you to remind yourself of what you've already done. So you're going to log in to your Google Drive, like I've logged in here on mine, and you're going to find one of your narrative stories. You can see the arrow pointing to my narrative story. You're going to open that story up, that story that you've already finished, and read it to your parents or a brother or sister or your dog. But really read it and think about and talk about what was it that made that a good narrative writing. Which of those components that we just talked about did you include in that writing? Which ones did you do a good job with? And which ones could you have done more with? Remember all the good work that you've already done in your narrative writing as you prepare your brain for what you're about to do. Once you've remembered your narratives from before, you're going to plan your seed. What was that watermelon seed? What's that great moment that you remember and could write a story about? It could be something that's happened recently, or it could be something that happened a while ago, but it needs to be something that you remember. I'll tell you an example of a bad seed that you shouldn't write about. When I was a little girl, about 2 years old, I fell in the toilet. And I was stuck in there and my parents had to come help me out. And once my parents helped me out, I turned around and I said, "You dumb potty." And my parents love to tell that story because they remember that story and they remember all the details from that story. But I was only 2. And that would not be a good story for me to write about because I do not remember it. So make sure when you plan your seed, you pick a story that you remember, that you know a lot of details about. Now, your parents can help you pick your seed. They may have good ideas of fun or interesting things that have happened to you, but make sure that the story you pick is one that you remember well. Then you're going to do a pre-write. Now, you have two options for your pre-write. You can stick here in Seesaw, and if you go into the activity that's connected to this video, you will find three pre-write pages, and you can do them in Seesaw. The problem with doing them in Seesaw is that then when you have to go write in Google Drive, you have to toggle between your Seesaw app and your Google Drive app, and you can't see your pre-write very easily while you're trying to do your writing. Now, it's not an impossible problem, and if that's the best way for you to do it in your household, then that's okay. But you may think, I really wish I could have it on as a piece of paper and I could write it. So if that is you, and if your family has the ability to print, then you can go to the link down below this video, which will take you to a page that has this pre-write on it, and your parents can print out this pre-write for you. Okay, so either on Seesaw or on a piece of paper, you're going to do this pre-write, and I know it's 3 pages, which makes it seem long, but it's actually the exact same pre-write we've been doing. I just had to format it so it would fit on Seesaw. So you'll recognize this. You're going to write what your small moment is. You're going to tell me the emotions, feelings, and reactions you want to share with your reader. You're going to think of some good sensory details. You're going to think of a hook, a good, great top beginning sentence to catch your reader's attention. You're going to write down who your characters are and what your setting was, and tell what happens in the beginning of your story. Then you're going to give me a few details about what you're going to say in your middle, and a few details about what you're going to say in your end. Is this the right place to write the whole story? No, this is not the right place to write the whole story. This is just notes. You'll do the real writing in Google, which brings us to our next step. So step 4, it's time to write. You're going to write in a Google Doc. So you'll need to log into your Google Drive. If you're in Otto and Krebs, you need to make sure you go to your 3rd grade folder first, and then hit the plus sign. If you don't go to your 3rd grade folder first, then your teacher won't be able to see your writing. If you're in Thompson or Allen's class, you're just going to create your document, and then once it's created, you need to share it with your teacher. Again, your teacher can't read it unless you share it, so make sure you share your writing with your teacher. Then as you're writing, you're going to remember all these components of a great personal narrative. You can always come back to Seesaw and look at these great ideas to help you as you go. And you're going to do your best writing. Now, this whole process is going to take several days. This is not something you're speeding through because your teachers are planning to use this for report card grades. So make sure you do your best. The other part is, should your parents do your writing for you?
No, Miss Krebs.
That's right. No parent writing. We want to see what you can do when you write on your own. When you're all done with your writing, then you're going to come and look at this editing checklist. Once again, there are 2 options. You can go to Seesaw and look at the checklist there, but once again, you have the issue of having to toggle between Seesaw and Google Docs. So if you would prefer, you can follow the link that's below this video and print out a copy of this editing checklist to help you as you check over your writing. Please make sure to check all of the items on this list and make sure that you've done your very best work. But again, are we going to let our parents help us with our editing?
No, Miss Krebs.
That's right. There's no parent help on this. Your teacher wants to know what you can do with your own writing, so just do your very best. We've also included in your seesaw this rubric. A rubric is a way for teachers to score something like writing. So this is going to show you what we're looking for in a really good writing assignment. So you can look at this and think about your writing and decide if your writing matches our scoring guide. All right. If you have any questions, please let your teacher know, and good luck with your personal narrative writing.